Greetings, friends. Our theme for this reflection is to explore what it means to have an attitude of mercy, not sacrifice, as Jesus taught. As a child, I grew up with the notion that the Bible has one true interpretation, and our task is to find that truth and never stray from it. And I've since learned that there are many ways of reading scriptures and other sacred texts. As they say, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and unfortunately so is hatred, cruelty, and exclusion. You can find it all there, depending on the lens that you use. And Matthew 9 verse 13 gives us a clue as to the lens that Jesus brought to reading the scriptures, what his hermeneutic principle was. He said, "But go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. I desire mercy, not sacrifice." And this suggests to us that what God desires for us, our deepest, truest nature, is mercy. And if this attitude were the cornerstone of our relationships and ways of being in the world, this would allow our communities to thrive and flourish. And I believe that this is our most natural way of being, if we are aligned with our true essence. But if our attitude involves sacrifice, rejection, or exclusion, this is coming from a place in us that has been damaged and not healed, or distorted by conditioning and dualistic either-or thinking. And its consequences can be devastating. Sacrifice, rejection, exclusion. We see that in the world around us, what the consequences are. If we bring this principle of mercy rather than sacrifice, not only to how we read sacred texts, but to all our relationships, including our relationship with our own humanity, our perspectives and attitudes will change. Now, I want to combine this with the parable of the weeds and the wheat, as told in Matthew chapter 13, verse 24 to 30, where Jesus described a farmer who had both wheat and weeds growing in his field as young seedlings. But when his workers asked if they should pull up the weeds, he discouraged them from doing this in case they mistakenly pulled up the wheat as well. What we once considered weeds in our lives and were eager to sacrifice may actually be wheat, which we can only recognize the nourishing value of with maturity of insight. An example for me is that during my earnest, no-compromise youthful Christian phase, I felt that I needed to get rid of all of my secular music, including Tracy Chapman, because any music that was not overtly Christian I saw as weeds, something to be pulled up and sacrificed. But now I recognize such sweet grains of wheat in the strains of Tracy Chapman singing the ballads that open the heart to the sorrow of the marginalized, the victims and the powerless. It touches the soul so deeply. Many of us have also grown up in religious traditions that taught us to reject other religions. But the nourishing beauty of Rumi, Ramana Maharshi, the Buddha, and so many others show us how impoverished this kind of perspective is, how limited it keeps our access to wisdom, not to mention the damaging, violent consequences of this worldview that wants to sacrifice everything that does not belong to my religion. A deeper example for me is my struggle with my sexuality, which was something I wanted to uproot and fervently prayed to be healed of. I now see this as such a beautiful and important part of my humanity. And this very struggle has opened up a compassion in me to the suffering and identity struggles of others. But it took years of learning to accept and be tender with this part of myself, allowing it all to belong. An attitude of mercy, not sacrifice. And this applies to all that we struggle with in ourselves. We so quickly turn on the painful, the shameful, the bad, wanting to uproot this from our lives. But this just keeps us divided and constricted, stuck in despair or self-deception. For example, if you think of the part of yourself you feel most distaste or shame about, what does it mean for you to bring an attitude of mercy, not sacrifice, to that? An ongoing one for me is anxiety, which I would happily cut out if I could. But how can I treat this with mercy rather than sacrifice? Now, this doesn't mean just continuing with damaging behavior, but it asks us to go deeper, to explore what is at the root of that behavior that is longing to be heard and shown mercy. This involves deep inner work and is potentially hugely transformative. This whole process involves welcoming whatever arises from within as a guide from beyond, as Rumi puts it in his poem about the guest house. And I'm going to read this poem through. It's so beautiful, so challenging. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. They may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. Imagine living that way with whatever arises in our inner terrain. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. Be careful what you want to rip out and sacrifice. It may be tomorrow's nourishment. Offer mercy to it all like that open field that makes room for everything, a space of welcoming and belonging. By bringing mercy with these parts of ourselves, we're able to open ourselves more freely in mercy towards others. There's profound healing that is possible when we receive mercy in the places that we don't expect it. And in practicing mercy with ourselves and others, we attune to the merciful heart of God. As Matthew 5 verse 7 puts it, "Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy." They will find themselves living in a merciful world. If we are continually dividing the field within and without into what is desirable and undesirable, we remain caught in our constricted, resistant wills with their limited perspectives. The invitation is always to find the spaciousness that is deeper than all labeling of in and out, right or wrong, weeds or wheat, and to live from this heart of mercy. Allow yourself to be surprised by what and who belongs in the immense and beautiful, mercy-filled landscape of God's heart. I want to round this off with some quotes from Cynthia Bourgeau's wonderful book called Mystical Hope, where she writes that the mercy of God does not come and go, granted to some and refused to others. She writes, because it is unconditional, always there, underlying everything. It is literally the force that holds everything in existence. the gravitational field in which we live and move and have our being. Just like a little fish swimming desperately in search of water, we too, in the words of Psalm 103, swim in mercy as in an endless sea. What a beautiful image. We swim in mercy as in an endless sea. Cynthia Bourgeau goes on to describe that in contemplative prayer, at the foundation of the soul, something of our being presses deep into the heart of God and begins to swim in the infinite ocean of God's mercy. That ocean is our source and substance, the very ground of our own arising, the foundation of hope. I encourage you now to move into a time of resting in the heart of God, bringing all of the parts of yourself, even those parts you feel distasteful or shameful of, allowing the whole of yourself to swim in the infinite ocean of God's mercy, knowing that nothing needs to be uprooted or rejected. All is held in tenderness, in the vastness of this loving, healing heart. Rest here for a while.